cathedral had become a battlefield in the space of 30 seconds. Jong Seok's men moved with military precision, fanning out from the center aisle to flank the altar on both sides. They weren't pointing weapons at the guests, the screaming civilians who'd come for romance and champagne, but at the groom's side of the wedding party, at the groomsmen whose hands had moved too quickly toward their jackets, at the best man whose smile had frozen into something feral. Victoria stood paralyzed between two worlds. Behind her, Jong Seok's grip on her wrist was iron. Before her, John's expression had shifted from shocked innocence to something colder, something calculated. "This is insane," John said, his voice carrying across the chaos. He raised both hands slowly, the universal gesture of surrender. "You're making a mistake. Victoria is my fiancé. This is our wedding day." "Your sacrifice, you mean?" Jong Seok's voice was conversational, almost bored. "Tell me, did you plan the honeymoon drowning yourself, or did the Red Dragon assign someone for that?" John's jaw tightened. Just for a moment. Just enough. Victoria felt the world tilt. "I don't know what lies he's told you," John said, directing his words to Victoria now. His eyes found hers, and they were full of the warmth she remembered, the gentleness that had made her say yes. "But I love you. Whatever this man has promised you, whatever he's threatened—" "Cliff diving in Santorini," Jong Seok interrupted. "Scheduled for day 3 of your honeymoon. A tragic accident. The bride slips, hits her head on the rocks. The grieving widower inherits $3 million in life insurance and clears his syndicate debt in one convenient death." The bouquet slipped from Victoria's hands. White roses scattered across the marble like tiny corpses. "That's not—" She looked at John, really looked at him, at the man she'd shared a bed with for 2 years, the man who'd proposed on bended knee, the man who'd held her while she cried about her mother's declining health and her father's drinking problem. "Tell him he's wrong." John's expression didn't change, but his hand moved. It happened so fast that Victoria's brain couldn't process the sequence. John's hand inside his jacket, metal glinting. Jong Seok yanking her backwards so hard her neck snapped. The explosion of sound that made her ears ring. The bullet meant for her chest buried itself in the wooden pew where she'd been standing. Jong Seok's men returned fire instantly. The stained glass windows behind the altar exploded in a shower of colored light. Guests screamed and dove for cover. Victoria's bridesmaids scattered like birds. Her father's voice was somewhere in the chaos, shouting her name, but she couldn't see him through the smoke and the bodies and the violence. "Move!" Jong Seok's arm wrapped around her waist, lifting her off her feet when her legs refused to function. Her cathedral train dragged behind them, catching on pews, ripping. $6,000 of imported lace shredding on church furniture, while her groom, fired at her retreating back. They burst through the side door into blinding sunlight. The contrast was obscene. Outside, the day was beautiful. Cloudless sky, birds singing. The kind of perfect spring afternoon Victoria had dreamed of when she'd booked this date 18 months ago. A black sedan screeched to a halt at the bottom of the church steps. One of Jong Seok's men already had the door open. Jong Seok threw her inside with no ceremony whatsoever. She landed hard against leather seats, her dress a white explosion around her. He slid in beside her, barking orders in Korean to his men. The car was moving before Victoria could catch her breath. Behind them, gunfire continued. She twisted in her seat, looking through the back window at the cathedral where her wedding had been, where her life had been, where everything she'd believed about herself had just died in a hail of bullets and broken stained glass. "Get down!" Jong Seok's hand on the back of her neck, pushing her below the window line. John's people might have positioned snipers. Victoria's brain couldn't process the words. Snipers at her wedding. her wedding. "This isn't real," she whispered into the leather seat. "This isn't happening." "It's happening." Jong Seok kept his hand on her neck, keeping her down as the sedan took a corner hard enough to throw her against his side. "And if you want to stay alive long enough to understand why, you'll stay down and shut up." The bluntness of it shocked her into silence. This wasn't a romance novel rescue. This wasn't some misunderstood bad boy with a heart of gold. This was a man who'd just orchestrated a military extraction from a civilian wedding, and he had the emotional warmth of a surgical blade. Victoria focused on breathing. In through her nose, out through her mouth, the way her yoga instructor had taught her. Except her yoga instructor had never mentioned what to do when your groom tries to murder you at the altar and a tattooed crime lord throws you into a getaway car. The sedan's engine roared. She could hear other vehicles, Jong Seok's convoy, she assumed, the sound of pursuit, sirens in the distance. "How long?" Jong Seok asked someone. His hand was still on her neck, steady, almost gentle now. 15 minutes to the tower. A voice from the front seat. 8 if we take the Riverside route. Riverside. Alert the building. I want the private elevator waiting and the penthouse secured before we arrive. "Yes, sir." Victoria's stomach churned. The penthouse. He was taking her to his home. And to wherever this man, this stranger who knew things about her life that terrified her, lived. "I'm going to be sick," she managed. Jong Seok's hand disappeared from her neck. A plastic bag materialized in front of her face. She took it, breathing into it, trying not to vomit all over her wedding dress. The irony would be too much. "Breathe," Jong Seok said. Not kindly, just factually. "Panic helps no one. My fiancé just tried to kill me." The words came out strangled. "I think panic is appropriate." "Your fiancé successfully tried to kill you," Jong Seok corrected. "I'm the only reason you're breathing. And if you want to continue that trend, you'll focus." Victoria lifted her head just enough to glare at him. He sat perfectly composed, not a hair out of place, his tuxedo unmarred by the chaos they'd just escaped. And the tattoos on his neck seemed darker in the car's dim interior, more threatening. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Really, not the name, not the reputation. Who are you to walk into my wedding and destroy everything? Someone who doesn't let innocent people die when prevention is possible." He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something other than cold calculation there, something that might have been anger, and someone who has a particular hatred for the Red Dragon Syndicate. "I don't even know what that means." Victoria pushed herself upright, ignoring Jong Seok's warning about staying low. They were on the highway now, surrounded by his convoy. No one was shooting at them. "I don't know what any of this means. I'm a graphic designer. I work from home. I go to yoga. I have student loans and a cat. Now I'm nobody." "You're worth $3 million dead," Jong Seok pulled out his phone. "That makes you somebody." He tapped the screen a few times, then held it out to her. Victoria's hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. The screen showed a document. Official. Notarized. Her name in bold at the top. Victoria Marie Sterling. Life insurance policy. Beneficiary John Edward Sterling. Death benefit $3 million. Below that, another document. This one was less official, more sinister. A contract written in a combination of English and what looked like Mandarin. She couldn't read most of it, but she could read the numbers, the dates, and at the bottom, 2 signatures, John's, and her father's. No. The word came out broken. "My father wouldn't. Your father gambles," Jong Seok said flatly. High-stakes poker, mostly. Was sports betting. Some stocks he had no business touching. Last year, he lost $800,000 to the Red Dragon Syndicate. They gave him 2 choices, pay with his life or offer something of equal value. Victoria's vision blurred. She thought of her father at Christmas, unusually sober, unusually serious. The way he'd insisted on meeting John, on approving him. The way he'd smiled when Victoria announced her engagement, like something heavy had been lifted from his shoulders. "You're lying." But her voice had no conviction. "You have to be lying." "I've never lied to you, Victoria." Jong Seok took the phone back. "I've been watching your situation for 3 months. Since John bought the policy. Since your father signed the Syndicate contract. Since they scheduled your honeymoon to Santorini and booked that cliffside resort with the notoriously dangerous rocks. 3 months. Her engagement had been 6 months long, but the wedding planning had accelerated 3 months ago. John's sudden insistence on getting married before summer, his interest in the honeymoon location, the way he'd handled all the travel arrangements himself, insisting she didn't need to worry about anything. The sedan pulled off the highway onto city streets Victoria recognized, the financial district, where glass towers scraped the sky and people moved with purpose and power. "Why didn't you stop it sooner?" she asked. "If you knew for 3 months, why wait until today?" "I needed confirmation, evidence. And I needed John to commit fully so when I dismantled his operation, there would be no room for plausible deniability." Jong Seok's expression was carved from stone. "The Red Dragon Syndicate has been a cancer in this city for 15 years. Your wedding was supposed to be their expansion deal. Your insurance money would have funded a drug pipeline from Shanghai. I couldn't move until I knew every player and every piece." Victoria stared at him, at this man who'd orchestrated her rescue with the cold efficiency of a business transaction. "So, I was bait." "You were leverage." He didn't apologize. "And now you're evidence. The moment you walk into a police station, the moment you testify about what happened today, the entire conspiracy unravels." The sedan pulled up to a building that looked like a blade of glass thrust into the sky. 70 stories, maybe 80. And the kind of place Victoria had walked past 1,000 times and never imagined entering. "Welcome to your new accommodation," Jong Seok said as his men opened the doors. "Try not to break anything expensive." The penthouse occupied the entire top floor. Victoria stood in the entryway, her ruined wedding dress trailing behind her like a ghost, and tried to process the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire city. The furnishings were minimalist, expensive, chosen by someone who valued function over warmth. Everything was steel and glass and sharp edges, like the man who lived here. Jong Seok shrugged out of his jacket, tossed it over a chair, and moved to the bar. He poured 2 fingers of something amber into a crystal glass. "There are guest rooms on the east wing," he said without looking at her. "While clothes in the closets. I keep sizes for situations like this. Bathroom has everything you need. You're not a prisoner, but you're also not leaving until John is in custody." Victoria's laugh came out sharp, nearly hysterical. "Situations like this? You mean kidnapped brides?" "Protected witnesses." He took a drink. "There's a difference. I didn't witness anything." She moved further into the space, her heels clicking on marble floors. "I saw chaos. I saw gunfire. I saw the man I loved, try to shoot me, but I don't understand why." "Then sit down." Jong Seok gestured to the leather sofa that probably cost more than her car. "And I'll explain exactly why you were worth more dead than alive." Victoria's legs chose that moment to give out. She sank onto the sofa, her dress pooling around her in an ocean of white. Then the absurdity of it all hit her again. Sitting in a crime lord's penthouse in her wedding gown, listening to him explain how her father sold her and her fiancé planned her murder. Jong Seok sat in the chair across from her. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing more tattoos on his forearms. Dragons, she realized, intricate black dragons that wound from wrist to elbow. The Red Dragon Syndicate started in Shanghai 30 years ago. He began. Human trafficking, mostly. Some drugs. Some weapons. They expanded to the U.S. 15 years ago, and they've been fighting for territory ever since. My family's organization has controlled this city's ports for 3 generations. The Red Dragon wants them. They need a local alliance to make that happen. What does this have to do with me? Victoria's voice was hollow. John Sterling is Red Dragon. Has been for 5 years. He was planted in your social circle specifically to target you. The room spun. Victoria gripped the sofa cushions. Target me. I'm nobody. I work from home. I have $40,000 in student debt. I drive a used Honda. Why would anyone target? Your father's debt created an opportunity. The life insurance policy created capital. But most importantly, Jong Seok leaned forward, his expression intense. Your murder was supposed to happen during a joint operation between Red Dragon and the Kang Syndicate. A show of trust. John kills you. The insurance money funds their drug operation, and both syndicates bond over shared blood. Victoria's stomach turned over. The Kang Syndicate, she whispered. That's you. That's my family. He didn't confirm or deny. And 2 weeks ago, Red Dragon approached us with an alliance proposal. They wanted me to be there, in Santorini, to witness your accident as a gesture of our mutual trust. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. So you knew, Victoria said. You knew exactly when and where and how I was supposed to die. Yes, and you waited until today, until the wedding, until the absolute last possible second. Yes. Why? Her voice cracked. Why not warn me? Why not go to the police? Why let me think I was marrying someone who loved me when you knew? Because the police have Red Dragon informants. Because warning you would have tipped off John. Because if I'd moved too soon, they would have just changed the plan and killed you anyway, and I'd have no evidence to dismantle their entire operation. Jong Seok's voice was hard. I saved your life. Victoria, don't ask me to apologize for my timing. Victoria stood up. The movement was too fast, too jerky. Her dress caught on the coffee table. She kicked at it, suddenly hating the white lace and the pearls and everything it represented. You used me. She was shaking. Just like John, just like my father. I'm just a piece on everyone's board. Yes, Jong Seok stood as well. And now you get to decide what kind of piece you want to be. What does that mean? It means you can be a victim, someone things happen to, or you can be a player, someone who makes things happen. He moved closer, and Victoria had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. John tried to kill you. Your father sold you. But I gave you information. I gave you the truth. What you do with it is your choice. Victoria's chest constricted. When she looked around the penthouse, at the luxury and the cold beauty, at the cage disguised as protection. Some choice, she said bitterly. Stay here and be your protected witness, or leave and be John's corpse. There's a third option. Jong Seok's expression was unreadable. Stay here and learn to protect yourself. Learn how this world actually works. Learn how to be the woman who doesn't need saving. Something dangerous flickered in Victoria's chest. Something that felt like anger, like power, like the moment before a match catches flame. And what do you get out of it? She asked. What's your angle? I get a witness who can dismantle the Red Dragon Syndicate. I get justice for the 5 girls they trafficked last month. I get revenge for what they did to my sister 7 years ago. His voice went cold. Hui and I get the satisfaction of watching John Sterling realize his perfect victim survived. Victoria met his eyes, saw the truth there, the pain buried under ice. What happened to your sister? She trusted the wrong person, made an alliance with Red Dragon through marriage. They killed her on the wedding night. Jong Seok's jaw tightened. So no, I don't save people out of kindness, Victoria. I save them because I couldn't save her. The silence that followed was heavy with ghosts. Victoria looked down at her dress, at the symbol of everything she'd lost today. Then she looked back at Jong Seok, at the man who'd destroyed her life to save it. "Where are the guest rooms?" she asked quietly. "East wing. Third door on the left." He turned away from her, back to the windows. "Dinner is at 7. Don't be late." Victoria walked toward the hallway, her dress whispering across marble. But at the threshold, she stopped. "Jong Seok." He glanced over his shoulder. "Thank you," she said, "for not letting me die believing a lie." Something softened in his expression just for a moment. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold mask he wore like armor. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow the real work begins." Victoria didn't sleep. She lay in the guest room, which was larger than her entire apartment, and stared at the ceiling. Outside, the city glittered with artificial stars. Inside, her mind replayed every moment of the day in excruciating detail. The way John's hand had moved toward his jacket, the sound of the gunshot, the feel of Jong Seok's arm around her waist as he dragged her to safety. Her father's signature on those documents. Somewhere around 3 a.m., Victoria's phone buzzed. She'd forgotten about it, forgotten that it was still in the small hidden pocket of her dress. She pulled it out, the screen too bright in the darkness. A text message from John. "Victoria, thank God. Are you safe? That man is dangerous. I'm coming for you. Just tell me where you are. I love you." Her thumb hovered over the reply button. For a moment, just a moment, she wanted to believe it, wanted to believe that everything Jong Seok had shown her was a lie, that John really did love her, that this was all a misunderstanding. Then she remembered the gun, the cold calculation in John's eyes, the documents with his signature. Victoria was about to delete the message when her door opened. She startled, sitting up. Jong Seok stood in the doorway, backlit by the hallway, and he'd changed into dark pants and a black t-shirt that made the tattoos on his arms stand out like warnings. "Don't respond," he said. "I wasn't going to." "Yes, you were." He moved into the room, holding out his hand. "Your face says you were considering it." Victoria bristled. "Maybe I just want to tell him to go to hell." "Then you'd be announcing you're alive and thinking clearly. John doesn't need to know either of those things yet." Jong Seok's hand remained extended. "Give me the phone." "No." "Victoria, it's my phone, my life, my—" She stopped, realizing how ridiculous she sounded. "You can't just control everything. I can control whether or not you accidentally get yourself killed through emotional decision-making." His voice was patient in a way that made her want to throw something. "The phone!" Victoria glared at him. Then, against her better judgment, she held it out. Jong Seok took it, his fingers brushing hers. He looked at the screen, his expression darkening as he read John's message. "Interesting," he murmured. "What?" "He's playing the concerned fiancé, which means he doesn't know whether you believe his story or mine." Jong Seok typed something quickly, then showed her the screen. "I'm going to respond. Tell me if this sounds like something you'd say." Victoria read his message. "I'm safe. Need time to think. Don't contact me. I'll reach out when I'm ready." She hated how well he'd captured her voice. Hated that he understood her well enough to write something she might actually say. "Fine," she muttered. Jong Seok hit send, and then he did something that surprised her. He opened the back of her phone case and pulled out a small metallic chip, no bigger than a grain of rice. "GPS tracker," he said, holding it up to the light. "John's been monitoring your location." Victoria's blood went cold. "How long?" "Since he gave you this phone, 6 months ago." Jong Seok pocketed the chip. He knew where you were every moment of your engagement. When you went to yoga, when you visited your mother, when you met your friends for wine. The violation of it made her skin crawl. "What about my ring?" The words came out strangled. You mentioned a tracker in my wedding ring. Jong Seok reached for her left hand. Victoria flinched but didn't pull away. He turned her hand in the light, examining the platinum band with its tasteful diamond. "May I?" he asked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He slid the ring off her finger with surprising gentleness. Then he took a small tool from his pocket. Victoria realized he must have brought it specifically for this, and pried at the band's interior. A tiny compartment opened, revealing another metallic chip. "They're good," Jong Seok said with something like admiration. "Most people wouldn't think to check jewelry." Victoria stared at the ring in his palm. John had proposed with that ring on a beach in Malibu, dropping to one knee during sunset. She'd cried. She'd said yes immediately. She'd posted photos to Instagram with 3 heart emojis and the hashtag blessed. And the entire time, it had been a tracking device. "Destroy it," she said. "Victoria, destroy it now. I don't want it. I don't want anything he gave me." Jong Seok studied her face for a long moment. Then he walked to the balcony door, opened it, and threw the ring into the night. They both watched it disappear into the city below, a tiny arc of false promises swallowed by darkness. When he came back inside, Victoria was standing. The guest room's borrowed pajamas, silk, expensive, someone's abandoned possessions, felt like a costume. "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "Everything. The contracts, the evidence, all of it." She met his eyes. "If I'm going to testify, if I'm going to do whatever it is you need me to do, I want to see everything." Jong Seok's expression shifted. Something like respect flickered across his features. "It's 3 a.m. I'm not sleeping anyway." He considered this, then nodded. "My office. Follow me." They walked through the silent penthouse. Victoria's bare feet made no sound on the marble. Jong Seok led her to a door she hadn't noticed earlier, one that opened into a room that looked like a combination of office and war room. 3 walls were covered in screens and documents. The 4th was windows overlooking the city. A massive desk dominated the center, its surface covered in folders and electronics. Jong Seok gestured to one of the screens. "This is your file." Victoria approached slowly. Her own face stared back at her from a dozen different photos. Her social media, her professional website, photos she didn't even remember being taken, her walking to her car, entering her apartment building, having coffee with friends. "You've been stalking me," she whispered. "I've been protecting you." His voice was matter of fact. There's a difference." He pulled up another folder. This one contained the documents he'd shown her earlier, plus more. Bank statements showing John's payments from Red Dragon, emails discussing the Sterling arrangement, flight manifests for the Santorini trip with notes about accident logistics, and photos, crime scene photos of other women, other brides, Victoria realized, other people who'd fallen for similar schemes. "How many?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "That we know of?" 7 over the last 5 years. Jong Seok's expression was grim. John's specialty is wealthy women with complicated family situations. He targets them, gains their trust, arranges marriages, and then stages accidents. The Red Dragon Syndicate takes the insurance money. John gets a cut. Everyone moves on to the next mark. Victoria's legs gave out. She sank into the desk chair, her mind reeling. "Why me?" She looked up at him. "Specifically, I'm not wealthy. My family isn't powerful. I'm nobody. Your father's debt made you convenient. Your insurance policy made you profitable. And..." Jong Seok pulled out another document. "Your mother's family trust made you valuable. You were supposed to inherit $500,000 when you turned 30 or got married. John knew that. He planned to collect the insurance money, the trust fund, and clear your father's debt all in one transaction." The trust fund. Victoria had forgotten about that. Her grandmother had set it up decades ago, a small safety net that Victoria had never really counted on. She'd planned to use it for a down payment on a house someday, maybe help her mother with medical bills. John knew about the trust? She'd never told him. She was sure of it. Your father told him, part of the deal. Jong Seok's voice was gentle, which somehow made it worse. I'm sorry. Victoria laughed, and it came out broken. You're sorry. The man who kidnapped me from my wedding is sorry. I rescued you from your wedding. You destroyed my life. I saved it. He moved closer, leaning against the desk beside her. There's a difference, even if you can't see it yet. Victoria looked at the screens, at the evidence of her own naive existence played out in surveillance photos and financial documents, at the proof that everything she'd believed about her life had been a carefully constructed fiction. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you rest. Tomorrow, we start preparing your testimony. Next week, we meet with federal prosecutors. By the end of the month, John and everyone connected to the Red Dragon operation will be in custody. Jong Seok's voice was certain, confident. And you'll be free. Free. Victoria tested the word. It felt foreign, like something she'd have to learn to understand. What does that even mean anymore? It means you get to rebuild. Become whoever you want to be without someone else pulling the strings. She looked up at him then, really looked, at the scar along his jawline that she'd noticed earlier, at the weight in his eyes, the shadows of his own losses. Your sister, she said. What was her name? Jong Seok went very still. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Minji, he said finally. Her name was Minji. She was 23. I'm sorry. So am I. He pushed off the desk, creating distance. Get some rest, Victoria. Real rest this time. But as he moved toward the door, Victoria spoke again. Jong Seok. He paused. Thank you for showing me the truth, even if it hurts. He looked back at her, and in that moment she saw past the cold exterior to something raw underneath. The truth always hurts, he said. But it's still better than a beautiful lie. Then he was gone, leaving Victoria alone with screens full of evidence and the slow, painful realization that her entire life had been a fiction she'd helped write. Outside, the city continued its endless glitter. Inside, Victoria Sterling began the process of becoming someone new, someone who knew exactly how much a life could cost, and exactly what it took to survive. The 3 days passed in the penthouse like a fever dream. Victoria learned the rhythm of Jong Seok's world. He woke at 5, trained in the building's private gym until 6:30, then spent his mornings on the phone speaking rapid Korean interspersed with Mandarin. Afternoons were meetings, men in expensive suits who looked at Victoria with curiosity but never asked questions. Evenings, he reviewed documents, made plans, moved pieces on a board she was only beginning to understand. She was a ghost in his space, present but not participating, protected but not involved. It was driving her insane. On the 4th morning, Victoria made a decision. She waited until Jong Seok left for a meeting at his legitimate shipping company, because of course he had a legitimate shipping company, and then she called John. Now she used the burner phone Jong Seok had given her. Untraceable, he'd said. Safe for emergencies. This qualified as an emergency. She needed to hear John's voice, needed to give him one chance to explain, one opportunity to prove that maybe, somehow, Jong Seok had gotten it wrong. The phone rang 3 times. Victoria. John's voice was rough, strained, like he hadn't slept. Thank God, are you okay? Where are you? I'm safe. She kept her voice steady. I need to see you. Yes, of course. Name the place, I'll be there. Cafe Meridian, the one near the park where you proposed. 1 hour. She paused. Come alone, John. If you bring anyone, I'm gone. I'll be alone, I promise. Victoria, I love you. Whatever that man told you." She hung up before he could finish. The cafe was public, crowded with lunch hour professionals and students with laptops. Victoria sat at a corner table, baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses hiding most of her face. She'd borrowed clothes from the penthouse closet: dark jeans, a black sweater, boots meant for someone else. She looked nothing like the bride from 4 days ago. She felt nothing like her either. John arrived exactly on time. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled suit, eyes red-rimmed. When he spotted her, relief crashed across his features so convincingly that Victoria's resolve wavered. "Victoria." He started toward her table, but then Victoria saw them. 2 men sitting separately but watching John, one by the entrance, nursing a coffee he hadn't touched, another near the bathroom, reading a newspaper upside down, and behind the cafe, through the window, onto a black SUV with tinted windows idling at the curb. John wasn't alone. Victoria's blood went cold. She stood up quickly, knocking over her untouched latte. It spread across the table like a warning. John's expression shifted when he saw her moving. The relief vanished, replaced by something calculating. "Victoria, wait!" But she was already walking toward the back exit, the one that led through the kitchen. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The cook shouted something in Spanish as she pushed past, but she didn't stop. The alley behind the cafe smelled like garbage and rain. Victoria ran, her boots splashing through puddles, her breath coming in gasps. She could hear footsteps behind her, heavy, male, fast. She rounded the corner and slammed directly into a solid chest. Arms caught her before she fell. She looked up, ready to fight. Owen met Jong Seok's furious eyes. "What did I tell you?" he said through gritted teeth. "About making emotional decisions?" Behind her, the footsteps stopped. Jong Seok's men materialized from nowhere, blocking the alley. The men who'd been following John froze, hands moving toward weapons they didn't draw. They were outnumbered, and they knew it. "Smart choice," Jong Seok called to them. "Tell John that Victoria is no longer available for meetings, especially not the permanent kind." The men retreated. One of them pulled out a phone, speaking rapidly into it. Jong Seok's hand closed around Victoria's wrist. "We're leaving, now." He dragged her to a waiting car, not the sedan from the wedding, something smaller, less obvious. Victoria didn't resist. She was shaking too hard to resist. Inside the car, Jong Seok didn't speak. He stared out the window, jaw tight, radiating the kind of anger that was more dangerous for being controlled. "How did you know?" Victoria asked finally. "I put a tracker in your burner phone. You..." She wanted to be furious, but mostly she felt stupid. "Of course you did. Someone has to protect you from yourself." He turned to look at her then, and his expression was withering. "What were you thinking? That John would confess? That he'd break down and tell you it was all a misunderstanding? I needed to see him, hear him. I needed..." Her voice cracked. "I needed to know if any of it was real. It wasn't. You don't know that. Victoria." Jong Seok leaned forward, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I've been tracking John all morning. Want to know where he was before your little coffee meeting?" She didn't answer. Yet he was meeting with a Red Dragon enforcer, a specialist, actually, the kind they call when they need someone eliminated quietly. He pulled out his phone, showed her photos. John in a parking garage, shaking hands with a man who looked like he killed people for a living, because he probably did. "They were discussing you, specifically the best way to kill you and make it look like Jong Seok did it." Victoria's vision blurred. The car interior felt too small, too hot. "The coffee shop was a trap," Jong Seok continued mercilessly. "Those men you saw, they weren't there to protect John. They were there to grab you. The SUV outside had chloroform and zip ties in the back. We found them when my people searched it." Stop. The word came out broken. Please stop. You need to understand what you're dealing with. John doesn't love you, and he never did. You were a job, Victoria, a profitable one. And now that you've survived, you're a loose end he needs to tie up. The truth of it crashed through her like a physical blow. Victoria doubled over, gasping for air that wouldn't come. Everything she'd believed, everyone she'd trusted, all of it had been poison disguised as love. Jong Seok's hand settled on the back of her neck, not demanding this time, almost gentle. Breathe, he said quietly. Just breathe. Victoria breathed. In and out, until the panic subsided enough for her to sit up, to wipe her face, to meet Jong Seok's eyes. I'm an idiot, she whispered. You're human. He removed his hand. Humans want to believe in love. It's not idiocy, it's biology. But you don't. I believe in love. I just know it rarely looks the way people think it should. He settled back in his seat. Real love is showing someone the truth, even when it destroys them. Real love is keeping someone alive, even when they hate you for it. Victoria studied his face, the scar on his jaw, the weight in his eyes. Is that what this is? She asked. Love? This is protection. There's a difference. But something flickered in his expression, something he shut down before she could identify it. We're going back to the penthouse, and this time, you're going to stay there until I say otherwise. No. Jong Seok raised an eyebrow. No, Victoria repeated, stronger this time. I'm done being protected. I'm done being a victim. I'm done waiting for other people to decide whether I live or die. She leaned forward, meeting his intensity with her own. And teach me. Teach you what? How to fight, how to survive, how to be the kind of person who doesn't need rescuing. Her voice steadied. You said I could choose what kind of peace I wanted to be. I'm choosing. Make me dangerous. Jong Seok studied her for a long moment. Then something like approval crossed his features. Dangerous is earned, not given. Then let me earn it. He smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. Training starts tonight. Don't expect mercy. I don't want mercy, Victoria said. I want revenge. The training room was in the penthouse's lower level, a space Victoria hadn't known existed. Mats covered the floor. Weapons lined the walls. Everything from knives to guns to things Victoria couldn't name. Jong Seok stood in the center, changed into training clothes. He'd removed his shirt, revealing the full extent of his tattoos. Dragons covered his chest, his shoulders, his entire back. They writhed across his skin like living things, beautiful and threatening. First lesson, he said as Victoria entered. Everything you think you know about fighting is wrong. I don't know anything about fighting. Exactly, so you won't have to unlearn bad habits. He gestured for her to join him on the mats. Most self-defense training teaches women to fight like men, strength against strength. That's stupid. You'll never be stronger than a man who wants to hurt you. Victoria bristled. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm being realistic. Strength isn't your advantage. Speed is. Unpredictability is. Ruthlessness is. He moved behind her, adjusting her stance with clinical precision. Men expect women to be afraid, to hesitate, to fight fair. Don't. What should I do instead? Win. His voice was cold. No rules, no mercy. If someone attacks you, you attack back with everything you have. Eyes, throat, groin, anywhere that hurts enough to create an opening. He spent the next hour teaching her basic strikes, how to use her palm instead of her fist, how to aim for soft tissue, how to turn her body into a weapon. Victoria's muscles screamed, sweat soaked through her clothes. But she didn't stop. Again, Jong Seok commanded. She struck at the pad he held. Again and again and again. Harder. You're holding back. Stop thinking about hurting me and think about surviving him." He moved closer, his voice dropping. "John is coming for you, Victoria. And when he does, he won't give you a chance to be polite. Hit me like you mean it." Victoria's vision went red, and she thought of John's hand on his gun, his calm smile as he aimed at her chest, the documents with his signature, the tracker in her wedding ring. She struck with everything she had. The pad flew out of Jong Seok's hands. He stumbled back a step, genuine surprise crossing his features. "Better," he said, rubbing his palm. "Much better." They trained for 3 hours. By the end, Victoria could barely stand. But she'd learned how to fall, how to create distance, how to spot vulnerabilities. "Tomorrow we move to weapons," Jong Seok said as they finished. "Can you shoot?" "No." "You will by the end of the week." He handed her a water bottle. "Rest. We start again at 5 a.m. Victoria drank, watching him move around the training room, putting things away with practiced efficiency. "Jong Seok," he glanced at her. "Why are you doing this?" "Really? The truth this time." He was quiet for a long moment, then, "Because Minji never learned to fight back. She trusted her husband. She believed love would protect her, and when he put his hands around her throat, she didn't know how to stop him." His expression was carved from stone. "I won't make you fragile. I won't let you believe that being soft will save you. The world punishes kindness, Victoria, especially in women, so I'm teaching you to punish back." Victoria's chest tightened. She thought of the woman in those words, the sister who died believing in love. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be sorry. Be stronger." He moved toward the door. 5 a.m. Don't be late." 1 week turned into 2. Victoria's body transformed, hardening with muscle, learning violence. She could fire a gun now, hit a target at 50 yards. She could disarm someone reaching for her. She could move through the world with a new kind of awareness, seeing threats before they materialized. But nothing prepared her for the phone call that came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Victoria was alone in the penthouse. Jong Seok had meetings all day. She was reviewing testimony documents when her borrowed phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it without thinking. "Victoria." The voice was female. Familiar. "Thank God. It's me. It's Sarah." Sarah. Victoria's best friend. Her maid of honor. The woman who'd helped her pick out wedding invitations and taste test cake flavors. "Sarah? Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm..." Static. A sob. "Victoria, he has me. John has me. He said, if you don't come alone, he'll..." The line went dead. Victoria's blood turned to ice, and she immediately called Jong Seok. "John has Sarah," she said before he could speak. "He wants me to come alone." "Don't!" Jong Seok's voice was sharp. "It's a trap, obviously a trap. I know it's a trap. I don't care. She's my best friend. She's innocent in all this. So were you. John didn't care." "I'm not John." Victoria's voice hardened. "And I'm not leaving Sarah to die because I'm too afraid to act. Where would he take her?" Silence then. "Don't do anything. I'm coming back. We'll handle this together." "Where, Jong Seok?" "Victoria." "Where?" More silence. She could almost hear him calculating, weighing options. "The industrial docks," he said finally. "Sector 7. It's Red Dragon territory. Abandoned warehouses, shipping containers, no witnesses. It's where they conduct their operations." "I'm going. If you go alone, you'll both die." "Then stop talking and start driving." Victoria ended the call. She moved through the penthouse with purpose. The gun Jong Seok had been training her with was in a locked drawer in his office. She knew the code, had watched him enter it dozens of times. Inside, the weapon waited. Cold, heavy, real. Victoria checked the magazine the way he'd taught her. Loaded. Safety on. She tucked it into the back of her jeans, pulled on a dark jacket, and headed for the elevator. Jong Seok caught her in the parking garage. "I told you to wait," he said, but he was already moving toward his car. "I don't take orders anymore." Victoria climbed into the passenger seat. "Let's go get my friend." The drive to the docks took 20 minutes. Jong Seok made phone calls in Korean the entire way. By the time they arrived, 3 more vehicles had joined them. Jong Seok's men, armed and ready. The industrial docks were a graveyard of shipping containers and rusted machinery. Rain turned everything to shadows and reflections. Somewhere in this maze, John was waiting. "Stay behind me," Jong Seok commanded as they moved deeper into the complex. "And if I tell you to run, you run, understood?" "No, Victoria, I'm not running anymore." She pulled out her gun, checked it again. "We end this tonight." They found Sarah in a shipping container near the water's edge. The door was open, light spilling out. Inside, Sarah was tied to a chair, gagged, tears streaming down her face, and John stood behind her, gun pressed to her temple. "Victoria." His smile was the one she remembered, warm and familiar. It made her want to vomit. "I knew you'd come." You're so predictable." "Let her go." Victoria's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. "This is between us." "No, this is between me and the $3 million you cost me, plus the alliance deal, plus my reputation with Red Dragon." His finger tightened on the trigger. "You've become expensive, Victoria. Time to pay up." "She has nothing to do with this." "She has everything to do with this. She's leverage. And now you're going to put down your weapon, walk over here, and let me finish what I started at that altar." Victoria's mind raced. Behind her, Jong Seok and his men had fanned out, finding positions. But one wrong move, and Sarah was dead. "Okay," Victoria said. "Okay, just don't hurt her." "Victoria, no." Jong Seok's voice. But Victoria was already moving forward, hands raised, or gun dangling from her fingers by the trigger guard. "Smart girl," John said. "Just like old times. You always did what I—" Victoria threw the gun, not at John, he'd expect that. She threw it at the light fixture above his head. The bulb exploded. Darkness crashed down. Sarah screamed. Multiple things happened at once. Victoria dove left. Jong Seok's men opened fire. John's shot went wild, missing Sarah by inches. And Victoria, moving on pure instinct and 2 weeks of training, came up behind him in the darkness. Her hand found his wrist, twisted the way Jong Seok had taught her. The gun clattered to the floor. John spun faster than she expected, his fist catching her cheekbone. Pain exploded. Victoria tasted blood, but she didn't stop. She drove her knee up, aiming for the vulnerable places Jong Seok had drilled into her muscle memory. And John doubled over. She struck again, palm to his throat, exactly the way she'd practiced. He went down. Lights flooded the container, Jong Seok's men securing the perimeter. Jong Seok himself appeared at Victoria's side, a different gun in his hand, trained on John's gasping form. "Stay down," Jong Seok commanded. But Victoria was already moving past him, toward Sarah. She ripped off the gag, started working on the ropes. "It's okay," she whispered. "It's over. You're safe." Sarah sobbed against her shoulder. Behind them, Jong Seok's men dragged John to his feet, zip-tied his hands. John looked at Victoria, and for the first time she saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. "This isn't over," he spat. "Red Dragon will—" "Red Dragon is being raided as we speak," Jong Seok interrupted. "Federal agents, local police, everyone. By morning, the organization won't exist." He smiled, cold and satisfied. "You were the last piece, John. The confession we needed to connect everything, and Victoria just extracted it." "I didn't confess to anything." "You threatened to kill her, in front of witnesses, while holding a hostage. That's enough for conspiracy charges." Jong Seok gestured to his men. "Take him. Federal custody. Let them handle the rest." As they dragged John away, his eyes found Victoria one last time. "I could have loved you," he said, "if you just died like you were supposed to." Victoria met his gaze steadily. "The problem with killing people, John, is sometimes they survive, and then they come back stronger." The police took statements for hours. Federal agents wanted testimony. Prosecutors needed evidence. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking over the city. Jong Seok drove Victoria back to the penthouse in silence. She was exhausted, bruised, her knuckles scraped from the fight, but she felt more alive than she had in weeks. "You did well tonight," Jong Seok said as they rode the elevator up. "I got hit in the face. You also saved your friend and brought down the man who tried to kill you. I'd call that a win." The elevator opened into the penthouse. Victoria walked straight to her room. She'd stopped thinking of it as the guest room weeks ago and opened the closet where she'd hung her wedding dress. The white lace looked obscene now, a costume from another life. She carried it to the balcony. The city stretched below, waking up to a new day. Somewhere out there, people were falling in love, getting engaged, planning weddings that might actually lead to happiness. Victoria hoped they'd be smarter than she'd been. She pulled out a lighter. Jong Seok had shown her how to use one during weapon training. The flame caught the lace instantly, spreading with hungry enthusiasm. She watched it burn. Jong Seok appeared beside her, 2 glasses in his hands. He offered one to her. "Whiskey, from the smell." "To surviving," he said. "To surviving." Victoria clinked her glass against his, watched the dress turn to ash. "What happens now?" "Now you testify. John goes to prison. Red Dragon's leadership faces trafficking charges. Your father—" He paused. "Your father will face fraud and conspiracy charges." "I'm sorry." Victoria had been expecting this. She'd made her peace with it somewhere between the docks and here. "He made his choices," she said. "Now I'm making mine." "Which are?" She looked at Jong Seok, at this man who'd destroyed her life to save it, who'd taught her violence so she'd never be a victim again, who'd shown her that the world was darker than she'd known, but that darkness could be fought. "I'm staying," she said. "In the penthouse? In this world? Your world?" She turned to face him fully. "You said I could choose what kind of peace I wanted to be. I'm choosing to be a player, someone who moves herself across the board." Jong Seok studied her face, looking for something. Uncertainty, maybe. Fear. He wouldn't find it. "It's not an easy life," he warned. "Neither was being soft. At least this way. When someone tries to kill me, I know how to kill them back." "That's dark, Victoria." "Good." She smiled, and it was sharp enough to cut. "I've learned from the best." Something shifted in his expression, something warm beneath all that ice. "If you're serious, there's a position opening up. Red Dragon's territory needs new management, someone who understands both sides, someone who can rebuild it into something better." "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an empire, if you're strong enough to hold it." Victoria looked out at the city, at all the lives being lived below. She thought about the woman she'd been 4 weeks ago, trusting, naive, building a life on foundations she hadn't thought to question. That woman was dead, burned up with the wedding dress. What stood in her place was something new, something forged in betrayal and tempered in violence, something that looked at a crime lord offering her power and said yes. "I'm strong enough," Victoria said. Jong Seok raised his glass. "Then welcome to the Syndicate, Victoria Sterling. Try not to die in your first week. Try not to make me regret saving your life in that shipping container." He laughed, and it was genuine. "You didn't save my life. You saved your own." "Same thing, isn't it?" They stood together on the balcony, watching the city wake up. Somewhere below, police were processing crime scenes. Federal agents were making arrests. The Red Dragon Syndicate was collapsing under the weight of its own corruption. And Victoria Sterling, former graphic designer, former bride, former victim, stood beside Jong Seok as an equal, not his prisoner, not his witness, not even his ally exactly, his queen. She'd chosen it herself. And that made all the difference. 3 months later, Victoria sat in an office that used to belong to a Red Dragon lieutenant. The view was almost as good as Jong Seok's penthouse. She'd redecorated, removed the excess, added her own touches. The space felt like hers now. On her desk, 3 folders waited for her attention. Business that needed handling, territory that needed protecting, people who needed reminding that the rules had changed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jong Seok. Dinner at 8. Wear something that won't show blood. We have a meeting with the Italians. Victoria smiled, typed back, You say the most romantic things. His response, I'm serious about the blood, so am I. She closed her laptop, checked her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the bride from that catastrophic wedding day. Her hair was shorter now, sharper, and her expression was harder. Her eyes held the kind of knowledge that came from surviving things that should have killed her. She was dangerous now, truly dangerous, not because Jong Seok had made her that way, but because she'd chosen it. The world punished kindness, especially in women. So Victoria had stopped being kind. She'd become something better. She'd become inevitable. As she left the office, her second-in-command fell into step beside her. Marcus, a former Red Dragon operative who'd switched sides when he realized Victoria was serious about rebuilding the organization into something less monstrous. Boss, he said, the shipment from Shanghai arrived. Clean, just like you ordered. No human cargo, no drugs, just the luxury goods we contracted for. Good, Victoria smiled. Tell them we'll be expanding our partnership. A legitimate business only. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with Jong Seok. And if they don't survive that conversation, then we'll find someone who will. They walked through the building, her building now, as people nodded in respect, not fear. Victoria had made that clear from the beginning. She didn't rule through terror. She ruled through competence, through fairness, through the absolute certainty that she'd survived things that would have destroyed weaker people. She'd been tested by fire, and she'd walked through it burning. Outside, her car waited. Not a black sedan this time. Something sleeker, faster. The kind of car that announced its presence without apology. As she slid into the driver's seat, her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Victoria Sterling, she said. Victoria. Her father's voice, older, weaker. They told me I could make one call before sentencing. I wanted to say, don't. Her voice was cold. Don't apologize, don't explain, don't ask for forgiveness. I'm your father. You were my father. Now you're just a man who sold his daughter to pay his debts. She started the engine. Enjoy prison, Dad. I hear they're very fair to men who traffic their own children. She hung up before he could respond. The pain was there, would probably always be there, but it was manageable now, controlled. She'd learned that from Jong Seok, how to take pain and turn it into fuel. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Sarah. Coffee this weekend? I want to hear about your new job. And by hear about, I mean you'll tell me nothing and I'll pretend I'm not worried about you. Yeah, Victoria typed back, coffee sounds perfect. My treat. And I'm fine. Better than fine. That's what worries me. Good. You should always worry about your friends. Keeps them alive. You're terrifying now. You know that, right? I know. Victoria pocketed the phone and drove toward the restaurant where she was meeting Jong Seok. The Italians were in town, wanted to discuss territory and partnerships. It would be a delicate negotiation, one that required both diplomacy and the subtle threat of violence. She was good at both now. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind of place where reservations took months unless you were someone. Jong Seok was already there, seated at a private table in the back. He'd dressed up. Sharp suit, hair styled, the tattoos on his neck visible but somehow elegant. He stood when she approached. A gesture of respect. "I'm partnership." "You're late," he said. "I'm exactly on time. You're early." She sat across from him. "Are they here yet?" "Arriving in 10 minutes." He poured wine into her glass. "Nervous? Should I be?" "No." His smile was approving. "You'll do fine. Just remember, I know. Let them think they're winning until they realize they've already lost." "Exactly." The Italians arrived precisely on time. 3 men in expensive suits representing the Moretti family. They assessed Victoria with curiosity and poorly hidden skepticism. "This is the new Red Dragon leadership," the eldest one asked. "A woman. The woman who dismantled the organization and rebuilt it in 6 weeks." Victoria corrected. "The woman who controls the Eastern Seaboard's shipping lanes. The woman who's currently deciding whether your family gets access to those lanes or finds another route through. What was it, Chicago? I hear the outfit there is very reasonable." The man's expression shifted. Reassessment. "We heard you were competent," he said. "We didn't hear you were bold." "Competence without boldness is just obedience." Victoria smiled. "Now let's talk business. You want shipping access. I want assurance that nothing illegal moves through my territory. No trafficking, no weapons, no uncut drugs. Clean business only." "That's not how this world works. It's how my world works." Victoria leaned forward. "And you're sitting in my world now. So either we find terms we can both live with, or you leave, and I find someone else to partner with. Venice has been reaching out." The negotiations lasted 2 hours. By the end, now they had a deal. Legitimate shipping, fair percentages, mutual protection. Victoria had gotten everything she wanted and made them think it was their idea. After they left, Jong Seok raised his glass. "Well done!" "I learned from the best." She clinked her glass against his. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For training me. For treating me like I could be more than a victim. You were always more." His expression was serious. "I just gave you permission to see it." They sat in comfortable silence. 2 people who'd found partnership in the darkest circumstances. It wasn't romance exactly, though sometimes Victoria felt something electric in the space between them, something neither acknowledged. It was deeper than romance. It was understanding. And it was the bone-deep knowledge that they'd both been broken and had chosen to be reforged rather than remain shattered. "Do you ever regret it?" Victoria asked. "This life, the violence, the constant calculating. Every day." Jong Seok's honesty surprised her. "But I regret Minji's death more. I regret every person I didn't save because I was too slow or too cautious. So I do this work and I carry the weight because the alternative is standing by while monsters win." "We're not heroes," Victoria said. "No. We're survivors who decided surviving wasn't enough. We're villains who prey on other villains. We're the people who understand that sometimes you have to burn everything down to build something better." Victoria thought about her wedding dress, turning to ash on Jong Seok's balcony, about the woman she'd been, naive and trusting, and about the woman she'd become, dangerous and deliberate. "I don't miss her," she said quietly. "The old Victoria. I thought I would, but I don't." "Good." Jong Seok's hand covered hers on the table, just for a moment. "She would have been killed eventually. You survived. That's what matters." Outside, the city continued its endless movement. People living lives they thought were safe, building futures on foundations they hoped were solid. Most of them would be fine. Their partners would love them. Their fathers would protect them. Their lives would unfold exactly as planned. But for those who weren't fine, for those who found themselves staring down the barrel of betrayal, Victoria Sterling's organization would be there, offering protection, demanding justice, creating a world where victims could become something more. And it wasn't the life Victoria had imagined on her wedding day. It was better. "Come on," Jong Seok said, standing. "I have something to show you." "What?" "A surprise. Trust me." Victoria laughed. "You know I don't trust easily anymore." "I know." His smile was genuine. "But you trust me." And she did. Against all odds, despite everything, she trusted this man who'd kidnapped her from her wedding to save her life, who'd shown her the truth even when it destroyed her, who'd taught her to be dangerous and then set her loose to rebuild an empire. They drove to the docks, the same industrial complex where they'd rescued Sarah, but it looked different now, cleaned up, lit properly, the shipping containers organized in neat rows. "This is yours," Jong Seok said. "Your territory. I'm signing it over officially. The Red Dragon Empire, rebuilt as something better, something that doesn't trade in human suffering." Victoria stared at the expanse of her new domain, her empire, built on the ashes of the organization that had tried to kill her. "Why?" she asked. "Because you earned it. Because you turned your survival into purpose. Because..." He paused, choosing words carefully. "Because you're what Minji should have had the chance to become. Strong, fearless, unbreakable." Victoria's chest tightened. She looked at Jong Seok, at this complicated man who'd saved her in the cruelest way possible. "I won't let you down," she promised. "I know." He turned to face her fully. "You're not the queen because I made you one, Victoria. You're the queen because you conquered yourself first. Everything else is just territory." They stood together overlooking her empire, two survivors who'd chosen to be more than their traumas. The night was cool, the water black and endless. Somewhere in the city, John was in federal prison, facing life without parole. Her father was awaiting sentencing. The Red Dragon Syndicate had been dismantled, its leadership scattered or arrested, and Victoria Sterling, former bride, former victim, current crime lord, stood at the center of her rebuilt empire with absolutely no regrets. This was her world now, and she'd defend it with everything she'd learned in those brutal weeks between the altar and this moment. "Ready?" Jong Seok asked. "For what?" "Everything. The war isn't over. There are other syndicates, other threats. This is just the beginning." Victoria smiled, sharp and dangerous and free. "Good," she said. "I was getting bored with easy." They walked back to the cars, when partners in violence, allies in survival. Behind them, the empire waited, vast and complicated and entirely theirs. And somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang, marking the hour. Victoria didn't flinch at the sound, didn't think about white dresses or broken vows or the life she'd almost lived. She thought about tomorrow, about the next threat, about the woman she'd continue becoming. The world punished kindness, so Victoria Sterling had stopped being kind. She'd become a queen instead. And queens, she'd learned, didn't survive by waiting to be rescued. They survived by becoming the most dangerous person in the room.